First of all, a big thank you to Will for creating this challenge as our collaboration with Games Night Viz. We always love collaborating. I love doing these challenges and kind of having no idea what the data set means, but luckily Will explained it really well for us in the challenge. So we've got just one data set, but we're splitting it up. So for the first data set, we're looking just at the damage stats. And so we need the fields of name and then all this I guess that means like physical, magical, fire, I don't know. And then we've got our category as well. And in our same data set but a different input step, we have our name, and then these are all to do with the requirements to use these weapons. So different skills here. I'm not going to try and guess these one. I think the dex would be dexterity. That's my best guess. Okay. So, Will tells us in the challenge that all of these different attributes, so we can see here, for example, in dagger, we've got 74 and 35. So 74 is the amount of damage that it gives, and 35 is the amount that it receives. Or no, sorry, that it blocks. I don't know. Resists. That's what I meant to say. Resists, not receives. And so we want to split each of them up in each of these columns where the dash means the value is 0. So we're going to do that pivot so that we don't have to perform it 5 separate times on those 5 separate columns. And then we're going to start to split them up. So if I go back to here, then on that pivot 1 values field, we'll go to the split values. I did a custom split with the space as a separator, and I'm splitting off all values, and that creates these 2 fields for me. So I've got all these how much damage do they give out, how much damage do they resist is the split 2, and I'm just grouping together this 0 with the dash because we know that the dash means 0, so we do that there as well. I'm not sure why you have weapons that do 0 damage, but maybe they're just not weapons at all. I don't know this game. Okay. So we're just going to rename those fields to be attack damage, damage resistance, and then just make sure they're both numeric because these are number fields. So change the data type to be numeric. Okay, and then we want to aggregate those. So grouping by name and category, we're summing up the attack damage. So this gives us the total damage for each of these weapons. Okay, now we're thinking about the requirements to use the weapons. So we come back to this other stream and we do very similar steps where we're pivoting columns to rows, all of those attributes, and we are then performing that split again on the pivot 1 values field. We see that we have a number and a letter this time. We're not very concerned with the letter, the attribute scaling. It's just the required level that we want to know. Okay, so very similar steps, and then we go to our aggregate and we group by the name and we sum up the required level again. So then we just join these 2 streams back together to create our data set, remove the duplicated name fields, and so we have our name, category, required level, and attack damage. So now we want to find out for each of these levels what's the best weapon that you could use. So for example, oh, that's a bad example because there's only one weapon. I imagine that's going to be the best one that you can use. But okay, here for example, so at level 10, I've got a choice of torches or a club. Sorry, a torch or a club. There you go. And I can see that the torch does 151 attack damage. The club only does 130. So I will want to only keep this top one. So let's perform that ranking. So if I expand the calculation window here, so I just went to the attack damage, went to the drop down there, went to create calculator field and rank. That gives me this pop-up. And so I'm grouping by the required level. I'm ranking on my attack damage in descending order, and I'm just renaming this field to be rank. And finally, I'm just clicking on my rank, clicking on the number 1 value and saying keep only, and that filters it to just the top ranked weapon for each level, and that's the data set that I get to. That's our solution. Now the little bonus there was to think about if we hadn't followed Will's guide step by step, how might we have done this a bit more efficiently? And so let's just take a look at that workflow instead. So we would have kept all the fields here, just remove the ones that we don't need in either data set before. Then we pivot everything apart from the category and the name, and we perform those same splits again. So getting out our first value and our second value, you can see probably we get the letters towards the bottom. There we go. But because we don't need to sum this field, that's not an issue for us. So then we can do all the summations, but just grouping by this value category here. Do a quick pivot so that we have those two separate fields for required level and attack damage, and then just the rank and the filter is all the same. So we could have done it this way instead, and it's always good to think about how you might improve a workflow once you've finished it up before it goes into production. Okay, so hopefully you enjoyed that challenge, and thank you very much for watching.